This is a 9mm Luger. It was rejected 3 times by the people who needed it the most. It's in every police holster in America, every NATO sidearm, every airport marshal, and every best-selling pistol on the market right now. One engineer, one cartridge, and one problem that nobody remembers anymore. And it quietly became the default for every military and every police force and every defensive shooter on Earth. Here's what actually happened. The 45 versus 9mm argument that is still talked about on every gun forum on the internet isn't really about ballistics. Well, it never was. It's about what happens when institutional ego outlives the data that disproves it, and how one cartridge designed by an engineer who was actually a decorated marksman quietly became the default answer for every military, every police force, and every serious defensive shooter on Earth. And that's the fight. Let's talk about how it happened. Today we're going to be answering 3 questions. That's 4. Today we're going to answer 3 questions. Why did Georg Luger invented the 9mm in 1902 and the country that needed it the most didn't touch it for 80 years? Why did the US military take until 1985 to adopt it? And why does every serious defensive pistol on Earth shoot it now? Well, we're going to earn that last answer. Let's go! Into my car! You've always suspected the 45 versus 9mm argument had to do less with physics and more to do with ego. You're mostly right, and here's how it actually happened. Georg Luger designed this pistol for the German military. He already had the 7.65 by 21mm Parabellum. It worked, it cycles, and nobody was complaining. But the German Navy wants something with more stopping power in a smaller package, which is the kind of request that you get handed to at 5 p.m. on a Friday evening. Well, I hate that. But Luger does something very elegant. He widens the case, shortens it, and seats a 9mm bullet that's now pushing faster than the 7.65 ever did. Same overall length, more mass, more energy, which kind of reminds me of a certain round. The pistol that feeds it is a P-weight Luger. The cartridge gets named after the pistol's motto, Parabellum, Latin for prepare for war. I find it kind of interesting that the Europeans call it Parabellum and the Free States call it Luger. It's like the metric and imperial stuff all over again. The Germans adopted it, then Austro-Hungarians. By then, World War I happened, and suddenly this cartridge is in every theater, every trench, every captured weapons cache on the Western Front. Here's the problem that nobody remembers. Before 1902, military pistols was a mess. Every nation, every branch ran a different caliber. Logistically, that's a nightmare. The 9mm didn't win on ballistics alone. It won because you could standardize around it. One cartridge, every ally, every resupply chain. The great nation of the United States looked at all of this in 1903 and thought, nah. The 45 ACP is bigger and strong. Not because it was logistically smarter, not because the data said so, because John Thompson, yes, that Thompson for the Tommy gun, which is a story I want to get into later, so subscribe. After the Thompson-LaGarde test of 1904, decided American soldiers needed something with more knockdown power. So the entire 20th century of the US military sidearm runs on one conversation from one colonel and one conclusion that lasted 74 years. Then something happened in parallel, something about what happens when military actually starts tracking the wound data from real conflicts. That changed the entire calculus. Okay, the wound data. By 1960s, NATO has a problem. They've actually started measuring what kills soldiers in combat. And the answer, uncomfortable for everyone involved, is the handgun caliber barely matters. Most pistol wounds across the board, 9mm and 45 alike, are survivable without immediate incapacitation. The thing that wins gunfights is hits, not caliber. Hits. A standard 1911 ships with 7 rounds in 45 ACP magazines. A standard 9mm service pistol ships with, well, depending on the platform, and it's hopefully not a P320, 15 to 17 rounds. But the math implies this. If the shooter's accuracy is roughly equal across all calibers under stress, and the 9mm gives you more than double the round count, well, you don't have to be a scientist to finish the rest of that sentence. In January 1985, after 74 years, the US military finally adopts the 9mm Luger after the XM9 trials. Beretta wins as a primary pistol. The 1911 gets retired. No ceremony, no apology, a procurement problem solved. Then April 11, 1986, handed everyone who hated the 9mm their case back. Miami, 2 FBI agents dead in a prolonged firefight with 2 bank robbers. The post-incident investigation found that the Bureau's 115-grain 9mm hollow points failed to penetrate deeply enough through barriers to reach vital organs. And the FBI blamed it on the cartridge. So they moved to the 10mm. Then it had too much recoil for reliable qualifications across a large Asian population. So they shortened it and produced the 40 Smith & Wesson. And that became the American law enforcement standard at that point. The military just adopted the 9mm, and the law enforcement immediately walked away from it with the rejection. Here's what I actually think is interesting about all of this. The 9mm won the way most things win. Not a single argument, not because it was obviously correct all along. The cartridge didn't change. The problem that nobody remembers, logistics problem, standardization problem, hits over caliber problem, was all solved in 1920. They just had to wait for the institutions to get out of the way. The modern 9mm plus P defensive ammo that you can buy from any gun stores today is a different animal from what Luger loaded in 1902. Federal HST's Hornady Critical Duty, Spears Goldot, decades of hollow point and propellant development, took a good cartridge and made it genuinely excellent. And the argument about ballistics performance still runs in every gun form, every range, and every comment section probably including this one.